Good morning all, and welcome to another InfraViewing Spotlight Series. I'm super delighted to confirm we have Richard Blanford, founder of Fordway. Fordway, in brief, are a UK cloud transformation and managed service provider that have been delivering enterprise-grade IT services to public sector and mid-sized enterprises for over 30 years now, offering an extensive Microsoft cloud services, cloud strategy, cloud transformation, and cloud operations and security as a long-standing Microsoft Gold partner. And once again, welcome, Richard. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Good morning. Morning, Tim, and morning all. So, Tim, far away.
Yeah, no, Richard, look, once again, appreciate you're super busy, so thanks very much for taking part. Yeah, just really delighted to have you on board. I was excited when you wanted to take part. So I suppose we should kick things off with a quick intro, an overview of your career so far, a little bit about you. Where'd you start?
Well, it's quite long actually, so I don't know how long you got, but let's just say I fell into the IT industry by a happy accident. When I left school, my aim in life was to be a professional musician.
Okay.
And I then became a drummer and bass, mainly drums. I'm rhythm section basically. So
nice.
Didn't quite work out. I was working in the building trades just as a job, and then ended up going travelling for several years and started teaching people how to ski and delivering yachts around the world and stuff like that. And
wow, okay.
Came back in the my mid-20s. Didn't make university. Unfortunately, I wasn't particularly good at school, and I just fell into the IT industry primarily by accident. Actually, there's a story behind it, but I worked back in the building trade, and a mate of mine from school who'd been equally as useless at school as I was. Turned up in a brand new 3 Series BMW. This was the late 80s, and this was the niche car. And I looked at him and said, "Fergus, where the did you steal that from?" And he went, "That's my company car." And I went, "You've got to be bloody joking." I was driving an Escort van at the time, I think. And he said, "Yeah, I work in IT." I work in IT, and he said, and I said, "How the hell did you get that job?" He said, "Oh, it's easy. I'll tell you what. I'll introduce you. I work for this company, and it was an IT distribution company that's." Tolworth Tower, if you remember, Tolworth Tower used to be a den of Nixie in those days, but got a job. A few months later, a reseller came in for me because I was selling him quite a lot of the Epson printers, and it was my main bag at the time. And in those days, selling Epson printers wasn't exactly difficult. Everyone bought Epson dot matrix printers, and and then a few years after that, I started Fordway with a friend of mine when we had a fairly fundamental disagreement with the owner of the company about strategy and direction and the way things were going. So Fordway started in the early 90s as primarily a Novell integrator. So we PC networks were starting to become fairly major business tools in those days. And people were starting to use them and migrate word processing, particularly, and sort of small databases off mini computers. But nobody really had a clue. And my mate Spencer, who we started the company with, and Fordway is an amalgamation of our surnames, Blanford and Holdaway. Yeah. We started offering Novell consulting services, and we were both pretty techie. By the time I joined the IT industry, I'd become a bit of a techie by then. But somebody needed to do the sales, so that was me. And off we went. So went through the internet.com boom, year 2000. Mid in the noughties, we were primarily a sort of actually Novell had died by then, so by then we started moving more into the Microsoft ecosystem, and actually became one of Microsoft's top partners for migrating from Novell into the Microsoft stack, Windows Server, etc.
Brilliant.
Then we had a financial crisis. Started a cloud business. Cloud business is still going strong, but our cloud business now has migrated from us running and hosting cloud services for our customers on our own platform. We're just in the final stages of completing our transformation to a public cloud first business. So we've migrated all our contracted customer workloads onto Microsoft Azure. And we are very big in security, Azure operations and management, Microsoft 365 management. Continuing their happy adventure that started back in the early 90s.
I love the story, you know, and I think that's what sells in today's world, right? You know, everyone's got one, and I think we should share it. And I love the fact that, yeah, saying that school wasn't necessarily for you, but then, you know, playing drums and, you know, part of a band to then teaching, you know, skiing, and now, you know, a founder of a very successful Microsoft Gold partner. I love it. In terms of you were talking about sort of where you guys have come from and where you're at now. So tell me what your sort of core focus is, you know, as a business, you know, just sort of, you know, summarizing it from a sort of, what's the focus right now? You know, what are you looking for or for the foreseeable?
I mean, the focus is to help customers adopt and, you know, successfully use public cloud.
Okay.
Mainly Microsoft flavored, because that's our history.
Yeah.
You know, we do a little bit of work with other clouds, and, you know, we've got a small bit of AWS, and we're sort of investigating Google, but nobody in our customer base is really moving that seriously towards it. You know, it's sort of a kick the tires, and there's other cloud providers out there which, you know, occasionally feature. But I mean, our real focus is to say to organizations, you know, we've been doing cloud, both our own platform and public cloud, for, you know, over 15 years now, and public cloud for nearly 10. I mean, we built our first cloud platform back in 2009.
Awesome.
To host and run our own services. And Azure, I think our first, there used to be something called BPOS, which became Office 365, and I think we put our first customer on that in about 2012, 2013, for any major government department. So, you know, it's a culmination of the history, but what we're trying to do to help the organizations is it's changed. And I mean, you know, if you look even back to the 90s when we started, you know, implementing Novell networks, I mean, we were doing change management and transformation. You know, most of the workloads we put onto those PC networks came off mini computers. We then again did change and transformation, and in, you know, the late 90s and noughties, it was all about, you know, moving on to the Microsoft stack, consolidation into storage area networks and enterprise backup. So SANs were a huge part of our business in those days. Virtualization then came along, and that was data center consolidation, and then virtualization on-premise sort of became cloud, because cloud was effectively virtualization off-premise for infrastructure as a service anyway.
Absolutely.
And then SaaS services developed. And now, so, I mean, the one constant in our business, and it's the same today, is helping our customers adopt and really get the benefits from and take advantage of what the latest technology can offer them. And I mean, cloud advantages, you know, flexibility, scalability, speed to value, you know, those are the key things that, you know, bluntly customers have always wanted, and this is a better way of doing it. And a different operating cost model. You know, you're not taking a 3 to 5 year punt on how much stuff you need and how much capacity you need. You know, you're now saying, actually, it's there, I can turn it on and turn it off, which brings different challenges. You know, because it's like your electricity bill, you know, you turn the heating down because the cost of energy has gone up a little bit. Well, in cloud computing terms, you may not need quite as many servers or sizes, you know, and this sort of stuff. So but we're using the same disciplines that we were using back in, you know, like capacity management, performance management, you know, service continuity management. All of those disciplines are identical to the disciplines that we've been using for the last 30 years in IT, you know, and longer than that, but just applied on different technologies. And I think our role as a company has always been, how do we help our customers take best advantage of the available technology? And what's, you know, first of all, we do three things. But the first thing we do is we help them work with them to understand what that strategy needs to be and how we realize their strategy. So they will have a business strategy. What we then do is we work with them to turn that into an IT strategy that says, okay, this is what it needs to look like. Here's a target operating model. Here's your current situation. Here is your to be. You know, here's what we need you to be. Get that target operating model defined, and then help them. The second part is help the transformation, because at heart we're a bunch of techies, and we always have been. You know, we provide technical expertise, but what we've also learned is the process expertise around project management, service delivery, security management, etc. And also we really understand that people are generally the biggest single contributors to the success or failure of any enterprise, any change, and any initiative. So many years ago we added, you know, the people development, typically using the SFIA framework to our model. And so you get that full model. And then more and more customers are now saying, well, do we need to run this ourselves? Because we're a retailer, we're a government department, we're a NHS trust, you know. Why do we need to have specialists when we can actually just give it to somebody, because we run effectively standard, consistent, repeatable processes that are effectively industrialized and increasingly automated? to manage and run these environments on behalf of our customers, and we can do it at scale at a very competitive price with flexibility, and also giving particularly mid-sized enterprises capabilities they can't afford themselves, like 24/7 monitoring, 24/7 security management. That all comes as part of the Fordway package.
I love it, and what you said there, sort of public or private, and it's not one hat fits all. The sort of process and the procedures that you follow from sort of objective, strategy, implementation kind of stays the same, but you're just working out what is the best technology for that business, and that's where the best sort of ROI comes, because it's not about just saying you just got to have Azure. It might be that you're bringing it back to your private cloud network. Therefore, we're looking at almost like the old school systems, storage, virtualization, sort of on-prem tech, but, putting it around your own private cloud. And I think that's the way forward, because, a lot of businesses, quite a few years ago, they kind of just went, public, and didn't look at that sort of private cloud also. And they started to lose businesses because some companies just weren't ready for it, or a little bit scared or worried, that how is their business going to look? How are they going to operate? They were worried about the security element. And, I love the fact that, Fordway absolutely sort of focus around that security piece once that cloud implementation or adoption is done. Yeah, it leads me on to my next question, actually, perfectly. You talked about customers there and making sure that you identify what's going to work for that customer long term, opposed to that quick fix. So what does the perfect client look like, whether it be size, vertical, or both for Fordway? What does that perfect client look like?
Well, I mean, we're sort of, we've got a reputation. We are quite good in the public sector. It doesn't mean we're specialised in, but we said, but many years ago we looked at how to win tenders, which is the way you win business in the public sector. So I think a few vendors see us as that, but I mean, our perfect customer is what we call a mid-sized enterprise. So it's typically organisations where they've typically got a few hundred to maybe a few thousand users, multiple locations, and the key characteristics of organisations of this size is their IT environment is starting to get a bit complicated. They've got multiple systems, multiple locations. They've got differing requirements, So it's where you need that understanding of enterprise IT with complex integration challenges, with transformation, issues, and trying to deliver services at scale. So, I mean, our perfect customer is somebody who, today is looking at, well, I've done the easy cloud migration stuff, like I've probably adopted Microsoft 365 and a few SaaS services. But I've got this core business applications, I've got a business intelligence environment, I've got reporting environments, etc., that, either are still on premise, or literally all I've done is lift and shift them into the cloud and nothing else. And we'll say, right, well, how do we actually evolve that? Because ultimately, most customers, I think their dream world is a collection of, interconnected and loosely coupled SaaS services. And we bring that, standardization, consistent authentication, standardized security model across multiple platforms. So our perfect customer is somebody who knows they need to do something, aren't quite sure exactly what they need to do, and ultimately are looking for an outcome-based service rather than, something deeply technical. So in other words, we want this, it's taken care of. Our business is running these core applications and our processes are embedded in those, but we'd like to leave the day-to-day hassle of looking after patching, security, operational management, monitoring, resilience, failover to somebody else, because that's not what we do. And we can, these are standard processes now. They're not unique. The same, monitoring and security processes we use for our retail customers or logistics customers are exactly the same in principle to what we do for government departments and some of our regulated industries. We look after civil nuclear, for example. Now they have a higher security, and one of the key things we do with customers is work out, what's your risk appetite, for example. How important is it to define exactly how much security and how much capability that we need to engineer into the systems? But ultimately we're using fairly common technology building blocks to build a bespoke service that's customized to suit each customer. But I say that mid-sized enterprise is our sweet spot. All our core customers, we call them gold customers, typically have about between 200 and 2,000, 2,500 staff.
Brilliant. So a fairly broad range, in terms of size. But I love what you said there. It's, it'll be a particular client will know that they've got to expand, scale, from a staff and technology perspective, but won't necessarily have that technical vision, that strategy internally. So that's where they come to you guys to look at what's working now, how can it be improved, and how can we stop or prevent any issues or minimize risk from a security perspective ongoing, almost like sort of professional services and then the managed service wrap around ongoing recurring model, right? Love it.
Absolutely. And that's the same. I mean, we've always had change capabilities and operational management capabilities and security management. And, it's that mix. You come to us. I mean, I'll say the ideal customer for us is they're sort of on a journey.
Yeah.
And for the next few years, we've decided that we're the best fit for each other, and we'll help them take them on that journey so that where they started, when we start a contract, for example, should be in a far better place at the end of that contract. And ideally, they want to renew it with us if they can. Obviously, in the public sector, they've got to go and re-tender it. But we've had commercial customers who've been on this journey with us for the last 15 plus years. And their systems and services and the contracts underpinning them have evolved to take advantage of the latest technologies. 15 years ago, we were running managed services on dedicated stacks of kit for individual customers.
Yep.
Now those same customers are running, all their services on the public cloud and integrated SaaS services. That's all been done through a contractual relationship where we literally run the service for them and make sure it's available so their business can run. But that change has happened underneath that under the existing contractual framework.
Absolutely. I love what you said there about the journey. I'm a big believer of, I think everything's all about the journey, but it's got to be a positive one. And for that to create that positivity, I think it's got to be a partnership, right? There's got to be trust. They've got to be bought in. They've got to be able to share and see that vision and that strategy and how it's going to work, look and feel. Because ideally you want them to renew and can stay with you guys. So cool. And look, in terms of sort of the challenges, because we've been through multiple challenges, we've had to adopt, we've had to change, dare I say it, COVID, but not just that. I'm just talking about digital transformation over the years from a technology perspective within that MSP solution by the world. From InfraView's perspective, that's all we work with. So we kind of live and breathe and sit right in the middle of that bubble from a sort of recruitment perspective. And, we've been lucky to go on multiple journeys with so many different sort of leading MSP solution providers. And I'm interested to know sort of, I suppose, what challenges Fordway have had to sort of overcome, just over the last few years, really. Has there been any big challenges that have enabled you guys to come out the other side in a positive way, or revisit and look at where the business could need to be better?
Loads of, well, I mean, there are always challenges. I mean, that's basically the table stakes of running a business, isn't it? And decent get and run a successful business is how you confront them, overcome them, and manage them and mitigate them. So
absolutely.
I mean, I think probably the last few years have been, well, I mean, we had a financial crisis in 2008, which was a bit of a doozy, but the learning from that, and one of our values as a company is adapt and thrive. Our core values, around
Love
teamwork. Adaptation and adapt and thrive, stronger together is another value, and great results, so we, those are our company values. And what we make sure we do is, first of all, everything's a learning. So the financial crisis very nearly killed us, because at the time our business model was based on project-based consulting, implementation and selling lots of kit.
It's all PS based, right?
Yeah. Excuse me. So we had to cover off that, and very quickly, and thankfully a wise fellow business owner pointed out to me the value of contractually recurring revenue. And it's one of the few times I really listened in life and went, actually, hang on a second, that makes sense. Right. How do we build that business? And our answer was, well, we looked at what was then the very early stage. I mean, this is before Microsoft Azure even existed. It was a concept in Microsoft. AWS had just been released, and we looked at it and said, well, that's a bit shit. So what do we do? And so we built our own cloud platform, and put it in a couple of data centers. And instead of selling the tin and the services, we actually started selling the services off the hosting off the cloud platform, and that kept us very very comfortably through the teens, through the sort of from about 2010 we started those services. And literally, we are just at the end of that iteration 12 years later, where we've closed down our final data center actually at the end of this month. Okay. And we're now completely, we don't have any assets, any data centers anymore ourselves. Everything we do is now public cloud first.
Wow.
And
okay.
That, so that journey, so, transformation. And I think one of the key things is where we're quite useful is that for our customers, we've lived these transformations as well.
Yeah.
You know, we run that business, and you can tap into that. And you probably notice I've got a few grey hairs. You know, we're not swing chickens. You know,
I wasn't going to say.
have the experience. We have the experience. You know, and
Yeah.
I think that's a key part. You know, what the customers want actually hasn't changed in 30 years. You know, it's reliability, scalability. You know, it's just got to work for basically, and it's got to deliver acceptable results for our business that we can then grow from. And that's digital transformation, is how do we put more and more products into the virtual world rather than the physical world.
Absolutely.
But, that's been that's the same thing. So I think the key thing, really, the challenge is, I mean, with COVID, I have to say, for COVID, for us, we hardly even blinked, because we were all working flexibly anyway before it started. What COVID did was prove that our corporate disaster recovery plan worked really, really well. Because and the ones we did for our customers, because our customers, outside of on a technical basis and ability to do their work basis, weren't impacted. They could work from home anyway as part of the services we provide. The general challenges in business have really come from three places. Obviously, forced change, but you ride with them. And I've got there's a great saying that isn't mine, but I love it. It's not how big and fast and strong you are in life, but it's how well you bounce. And how I love it. A lot of being successful in business is bouncing well.
Yep.
You bounce it. We nearly went bust in the late noughties because of the financial crisis, but out of it came a bigger, stronger, better Fordway, that grew successfully and became twice the size in turnover terms as that we ever did in the noughties. We're now bouncing again because our current business model of hosting services at our own data centers, that course is run, and you've seen companies like UK Cloud who were all in on that, for example, went bust. Now, thankfully, we saw the writing on the wall a bit before them, and we weren't quite so invested. We had the opportunity, so we reversed course. So it's meant financially a rough couple of years for us because we've had the costs of all that, but we're coming out now a lean, stronger machine, which is going to start growing again, because we've got everything focused. And one of the key things with running a successful business is getting everyone aligned behind a common vision and making sure that everyone knows their role. And that's part of what we really work on, is to make sure that everybody in the company fully understands, and you're on the journey with us. And if you don't like being on the journey, that's not a problem. We can find something else, but we want people who really want to be invested and be on the journey with us to say, this is where we're going next, and this is why we're going there, and this is what your role in it is to be.
I couldn't agree more. I think that's so key in today's world. I often sit here and when I sit at board level with multiple solution providers, the big thing right now, and actually insights that we get from candidates, is they want to be part of a business. I don't mean just getting involved in the job that they love, but be part of a company where they share that vision, they share that strategy. They can actually be part of something that is scaling, growing, and they can get that job satisfaction by the value that they add. And I love what you said there in terms of the challenges. It's how you react to that defines who you are today. That's what I believe. That sort of old school. We fail so we can rise. We fall so we can get up. And it's so true. In any shape or form, business, sport, pleasure, whatever. It's those bad times. It's those issues that occur. Which, let's face it, in IT they do. Or any business, any life, personal or in personal or business. And I think that's a positive. I look at it as a positive shake-up. It gives you the opportunity to potentially unearth those skills that aren't being utilized, or you weren't aware that you could able to adapt, change, utilize, and then thrive. I love it. I love adapt and thrive in terms of that value. Yeah, brilliant. Cool. Okay. So, in terms of, you sort of talked about the plans, but, in summary, what's the plan now for the next few years? Have you got a 2-year plan, 3-year plan?
Absolutely. Grow a successful public cloud first business from the basis we've already got, is the plan. I think there's 3 elements to that. One is obviously bring all the current staff and members of Fordway on the journey with us. So we're, retraining, investing heavily, and people like Microsoft are forcing us to do things like, upskilling, but we were going to do that anyway as part of their changes to their partner program. So, we got the people challenges, and we will need to bring in new, good quality people to help us as part of that journey.
Yep.
Second one is customer acquisition. It's always an ongoing issue in our, but we have a great customer base, and thankfully most of them are contracted to us, so they continue to pay us money, but we need more customers, and contracts come to an end and relationships edge. So, we need to make sure that we're relevant to our customers, and and also understand the new rules of selling, because there are, it's different. The social media world, customers are way more. And I think the third thing and most important thing is we enjoy doing it. Because if you don't enjoy doing it, then what's the point of coming to work? You spend 30 of your life at work, and if you don't enjoy working, then bugger it, go and find something else you do enjoy. And weirdly enough, I still play drums, but part time, and I love it. But I enjoy working as well. I found something.
Balance.
I thought when I left school, I thought, fucking hell, the last thing I want to do is work in an office. And sorry, pardon, I do swear a bit.
No, me too.
And 30 years or 40 years later, I'm thinking, actually, well, this office stuff ain't so bad. It's done me okay, thanks. And I think I've given a lot of people
someone who's
a good
come from the drums,
and,
you're doing well. You're doing very well. So someone who never thought of seeing themselves working in an office and living the life sort of on the high road, sort of drums in the boot, sort of going from pub club to whatever. You're doing well, Richard. What about core USPs? In terms of sort of how would you sort of sum that up? I mean, you talked a lot about
people always say about different. I mean, there are lots of organisations that on paper look pretty similar to Fordway. Do similar stuff. We're a multi-Microsoft Gold partner. We've got the same accreditations. I think probably the two things that really single us out is one is we are driven by our customers and very customer focused. I mean, in 30 years, we've never been sold. We've never bought anybody. I did sell off a small division of the company 12 years ago, because it wasn't no longer part of our core business. But, you get consistency, you get that integrity, and you get the immediate access. I mean, just about every customer, if they need it, and thankfully they very rarely need it, has got my phone number, and if they escalate it to me, then they know it's going to be looked after. But that's probably not so much that. It's more the fact that we've built a team of people who've been working together a long time. I mean, there's people in Fordway who've been working with us well over 20 years and still enjoying along for the ride and still enjoying it. Okay. And I think that's the one thing. Secondly, is there's so many companies out there that are just focused purely on growth, and they're buying and selling each other. And to build a long-term relationship, you need to have consistency on both sides. Okay. If your managed service provider is being bought twice in the space of a 3-year contract and a completely different management team with completely different priorities comes in, then how are you going to get that quality of service? Change, people feel uncomfortable. If organisations change, are the key people you depend on still going to be there? So I think that's probably our two of our key USPs, and obviously the third one, technical. We are deeply technical. We don't just talk about it. We actually do it and deliver it and prove it. All our professional services are delivered by Fordway people. Okay. There are staff, no outsourcing. Staff. Very little. Occasionally we pull good quality contractors in. We got a list of known contractors who we know, but we contract them in directly to work as part of the service. We don't tend to in fact, we hardly outsource anything. Perfect. So consistency, people, trust, and technology. Love it. Okay, cool. And then in terms of, I suppose one of the famous questions that everyone asks right now, culture. How do you build culture, or how do you promote culture? At Fordway for the wider. You ask all easy questions, don't you? It's for the wider audience. Okay. Well, I think probably culture really is rad too. I mean, culture builds itself, to be perfectly honest. I mean, you can help drive it. Absolutely. But I think the most important thing I've ever done in life, is you judge people by their actions, not by their words, is obviously number one of them. But follow, and as a leader, you've got to set the example and do. If I want people to work hard and they see me pissing off and enjoying myself, then how invested are they going to be in the rest of the leadership team? So be there in the trenches. I mean, in the past, I've pulled cable with the team. Still I'm on a 24/7 call out rota every few weeks. I think that's the key thing. That and known people have got your back, and your teams have got your back. I think very, very important. In our world, perfect service is the expectation. It's normal. But it's how you react when things don't work as planned. And we've been for the last 30 years helping customers when they're effectively in trouble themselves. And we, effectively we're the guys in white coats with the blue lights, coming in to help fix the problems. And that's really what our job is. So we've become extremely good at it because we have, through lots of experience, how do we handle it? Take the heat out of the situation. Let's focus on solving the problem. Let's keep the reactions down and learn from it. Obviously, as one of our values says, what can we learn from this to make sure it doesn't happen again? But the first important thing is let's focus on ensuring that we address this issue, solve this problem, deliver the outcome that the customer needs. And that's absolute focus for us, at all times is that pure focus on making sure that happens.
Yeah, no, I love it. And look, it's the culture question comes up all the time. And I think, what you summed up there is opinions count, trust people, let them, give them the opportunity to fail at times. And like you say, identify how they overcome that, because it just gives them that sense of satisfaction that they've achieved something. I think it's very easy to identify success, but actually, how you overcome that failure will, in my eyes, create a slightly more longer success pattern and ideally prevent that risk from coming. Okay, cool. Right. So let's bring it back to you, because you've given some fantastic insights about the business, the culture, the strategy, the vision, what you guys specialize in. And I'm sure the audience are going to absolutely love that. But yeah, just in terms of, your biggest career success to date in one paragraph.
Well, I can... Still being here, still enjoying it after 30 years. There's been many highlights and many lowlights. I wouldn't really single out. Staying married and having 2 kids is pretty impressive. I think in some ways having run a business. But yeah, I'd say ultimately I can't really single out a single thing. I mean, there's been fantastic customer wins, but our biggest ever customer contract win turned into our biggest nightmare when the contract ended 3 years later and we didn't have another customer of a similar comparable size.
Right.
It was like there's this old Chinese, I think it's a Chinese curse actually, like may your dreams come true.
Yeah.
Because when your dreams come true, suddenly you realise that actually your dreams weren't actually what you wanted, or actually there's a downside to that dream. We won the biggest contract we'd ever won in our history. Absolutely fantastic. Great for 3.5, 4 years. They then retendered that contract because they had to, because they were a government agency. And we didn't get the retender. So suddenly over a third of our revenue just walked out the door overnight. And I thought, oh, bloody hell, no, that hurts. But 3 years before we were sitting there, sitting in the pub thinking, brilliant. You just don't know. So yeah, I think still being here and still enjoying it after 30 plus years is probably my biggest success.
Absolutely, I love it. And look, the way you said it, still married, still a proud father, while still in the IT doing something you love. Brilliant. And look, if we don't love it, why do it, right? I'm a big believer. I knew you mentioned that earlier. Cool. Okay. And wrapping things up in terms of what advice do you have for others looking to get into technology and more importantly within the MSP solution provider world?
Well, I think only get into it if you enjoy it. I think the concept of a working day in our business is a bit flexible. It has to be. Be adaptable. Everybody these days is in technology in some way. I mean, there isn't a job in the UK, I don't think, that doesn't involve technology in some way, shape, or form. So, I think, but the most important thing is find the organisation that suits you, and you suit the organisation, because I have to say we were sort of used to call ourselves a sort of home for waifs and strays, because we got lots of people who tried the big corporate environments, but it hadn't worked for them, and they found a really nice home at Fordway and have done successfully for many years. We never recruited at the top of the market because we've never been a company with that sort of ability to pay the high salaries, or there's a lot of people in Fordway who've had interesting careers up to joining us, who've thrived. I mean, we've got ex-servicemen, we've got an ex-fireman who did extremely well, who's now bigwig in our security team. It's a very adaptable organisation. We don't look for the perfect candidate, because the perfect recruit doesn't exist, and if so, they're probably going to go and work for a KPMG or a computer centre or someone like that. But I think the key thing is, do we both like each other? Does it fit and does it work?
I couldn't agree more. Personality, character. I believe that the market is driven by that. If you get someone that's what I call a good egg, someone that's passionate, motivated, ambitious, bought into the bigger picture, shares your vision, you guys trust and like each other, then, you can train and develop skills and experience, right? But, if they're not bought into you, the bigger picture, the vision, the strategy, they don't want to go the extra mile, in my eyes, probably not worth investing in. Okay. Cool. Brilliant. Listen, there's been some amazing insights there. We're coming near to the end. I want to do some quick fire questions now, just to finish off. So I've got about 10 here. So they're sort of almost one-word answers. Which three people would you most likely to invite for dinner?
You said that. Actually, I hadn't answered this. I was answered this by a CRN journalist, and I think I said Genghis Khan, Julius Caesar, and Napoleon, because they all conquered the world, or they sort of almost conquered the world, but ultimately weren't successful. And why, hubris? Why didn't you? So I think they're probably, but Marilyn Monroe, Chrissy Brinkley, and I don't know, would be nice as well.
Well, absolutely, yeah. No, I second that. Certainly on Marilyn Monroe.
Different sort of dinner.
Exactly. I know this. Apple or Microsoft?
Oh, Microsoft. Yeah, no, I must have. I'm described as the anti-Apple in the company. I'm not a big fan, but more because I think they make great products, but I really don't like their business model much.
Okay.
They don't encompass partners.
Football or rugby?
Oh, rugby. I've played it for 35 years. I coached it for 20 years, and I'm now a London Society referee, so it has to be. But I enjoy it still. I play five-a-side well. But yeah, my passion is rugby.
Brilliant. Me too. Degree or apprenticeship?
Apprenticeship.
Cool.
Even though both my kids have done, one's done a degree and the other one's doing a degree, but I never did one.
No, same. Similar background. Cool. Perfect. So one thing or a personal passion that or a hobby that most won't know about you?
I think probably quite a lot of people do know this, actually, certainly people, but I have a passion for speed and motorbikes in particular. And I've done over 1,200 laps of the Nürburgring, mostly at high speed and following some very, very fast riders, and on my own. And I probably do most years 5 to 8 track days on a variety of motorbikes I own.
Wow.
Love it.
Blimey. Okay. And then favourite technology over the last 20 years?
I think probably would be the smartphone. But like all technologies, it's both good and bad. The fantastic thing is you've got information at your fingertips and anyone can contact you at any time, which is both good and bad. But the bad thing is that there's lots of nasty, evil companies like Facebook's trying to slurp your data all the time and take advantage of that information they have. Absolutely.
Best thing about the channel, or best thing about working in the channel?
Variety. Absolutely. No 2 days are ever identical. Sometimes, and when they start feeling the same, you sort of got to question why you do it. But I can have a fantastic plan for the day and know what I want to achieve, and by 9 o'clock in the morning, that's gone completely sideways, and I've got to focus on something completely different. But that's some people aren't that keen on it, but that's what I love. And anybody who works for an MSP like Fordway, you will get some of that, no matter what you do in the business. There will always be conflicting priorities, and sometimes some things get overridden at short notice.
Brilliant, love it. And a motto that you live by? One of your favourites?
I think I'll give you 2 because I'm allowed. So I'll take 2.
Absolutely.
I'm allowed. The first one, I think the first and most important thing is keep buggering on. It's success. Success doesn't always come instantaneously. In fact, every overnight success has got 10 to 15 years hard work behind it. Whether in music, in life, in whatever. And I think the other thing is JFDI. I sort of live by, once you've decided what you want to do, just get on and do it. Don't talk about it endlessly. Try it, see it. If it doesn't work, change it. But that's the most important thing is be wired for action. I say it's one of our behaviours in the company is when a decision is made, let's try it. You can always adapt it, but at least you're moving forward in a positive manner. And if you're not succeeding, at least learning as part of the process, and you can always change it and adapt it as you need to.
Love it. Similar to one of our values at InfraView, make it happen.
Yeah.
Cool. One thing you'd like to have known, when you began your career.
Jesus, there's so many. I think ultimately, probably the single most important lesson I would ever say to anybody who's looking to certainly lead a business in any way, shape, or form is ultimately it all comes down to people.
Yeah.
Which probably I should have known, because before I started Fordway and while I was in the early days of Fordway, I played a lot of pretty high level rugby, and You know, I played in some great teams that had absolutely no superstars in them. And I played in some not very good teams where we had fantastic players supposedly, but we couldn't work with them, or they thought at a different speed. And, you know, I think, like, you look, it's the old Cristiano Ronaldo problem. You know, he's a fantastic player, but you don't want him in your teams quite often because you've got to shape the team to suit him rather than do what's best for the team.
Yeah, one man can't beat a team of 15, right?
Yeah.
No, I totally agree.
Yes.
Perfect. Listen, Rich, we have come to the end, but once again, thank you so much for taking part in InfraViewing, our Spotlight series. I do wish yourself and Team Fordway all the continued success. For the wider audience, I hope everyone has enjoyed hearing from Richard and his insights and company overview, strategy, vision, as much as I have today. It's been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. If anyone would like to comment or reach out to Richard, or just feel free to comment below. All the details are there stated. Feel free to post any comments, reach out, and obviously if anyone would like to take part in the InfraViewing Spotlight series, feel free to give me a shout. Again, my details are below. Once again, Richard, you've been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tim. And yeah, I'll say, if anyone would like to get in touch, please feel free.